Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 2 of the Tier List Tuesday show, where today we are going to be ranking out of the 6 Peter Jackson Middle-earth movies and the 2 trilogies, which of those movies, in order to our ranking scale, was the most faithful to Tolkien's works and specifically the books. So we aren't really ranking today on how successful the movies were themselves, but instead, just like last week, how it was to the source material. And in a future episode of this show, we will probably do one on how successful each movies were. For example, the most successful Lord of the Rings movie may not be the most faithful, but it still makes sense. And we also don't want to take anything away from the film trilogies as well, because we know some decisions had to be made in order to make the movie work, and we totally understand that. So the main thing just really is just a little fun thing, seeing how maybe factually to the point how the best adapted these movies were to the Tolkien's works. But as always, in order to people joining me today is firstly Chilling Garden. Hello, my friend.
Hello everyone.
Great, thank you for coming on again. And we also have the YouTuber Memory Troll. Hello, my friend.
Hello, friends, far and wide. Hope everybody's doing well today. Great to be here.
And thanks for coming on, and his YouTube links will be in the description below. So I think that's enough talking now, and let's go right into it. And as you can see from the tier list, the first movie is The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. So, Memory Troll, do you want to start this one off? Initial opinions?
Yeah, that sounds great. So the tricky thing, I think we can all agree with this. The tricky thing about the Hobbit trilogy is that the Hobbit is not a trilogy. And the going into the movie verse of that story was a little bloated, and if you had to break it down, the first Hobbit film, Unexpected Journey, follows the story up to the Carrick, and all of the goings on after the Misty Mountains. So I guess out of the 3 Hobbit films, in my opinion, this one is probably the most faithful to the book. As far as like embellishments in the story, I don't think there's as many in that film as the other 2. So I'm going to rank the first Hobbit film a little higher on this list than the other 2 Hobbit films. But I still don't think An Unexpected Journey deserves to be really high on this list overall. I personally would probably put this at the decent category, just mediocre in the middle. For me, I really enjoyed many elements of that movie. I think all of the early stuff when they're in Bag End, the dwarves arriving, all of when they start to map out their quest, talking about what's going to happen, Bilbo coming on board. I think all of that stuff was a cool translation to film, and it wasn't too much of a diversion from the book. But as the story progresses in the movies, it's hard to say that it stays true to the book.
So yeah, that's why I think Chilling Garden, if you want to add on that, maybe is this decent the best category for it then?
Yes, I absolutely agree with Memory Troll. I think from all the Hobbit movies, this was probably the most truthful one to the books. But also it was, I think, too much stretched on the whole story and content that we have in the books. And yes, I agree that the first parts of the movie were more truthful one. Then, for example, when they were in the Goblin Kingdom, or for example, when the fact that Azog was also in the movies, that's made up because in the books he died at the Battle of Moria. But yes, I mean, I would also put this movie in decent.
And
Yes.
and I think that I would put it in decent as well. And just to reaffirm what I was trying to explain earlier, I think out of the three Hobbit movies, An Unexpected Journey is the most faithful to the lore, even though it maybe isn't that much. But I still don't think it was the best Hobbit movie. I think that was the Desolation of Smaug, however you pronounce it. But that's just my personal opinion. But that would probably be lower than Unexpected Journey as we are ranking it on faithfulness. But talking about my favorite movies, The Two Towers is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie, surprisingly enough. And Chilling Garden, do you want to take this one away?
Yes, I will. I think, yes, well, generally, Lord of the Rings movies, I think, were more faithful ones than the Hobbit movies. The Two Towers, I think, in comparison to other chapters of the Lord of the Rings, I think has benefit that I think the movie covers the most chapters from the book.
Indeed.
I think it misses only one chapter, Road to Isengard, or the most of it. But yes, generally I think it was well adapted.
So which category would you put it in then?
Yes, I think Two Towers is Maiar in my
Maya?
opinion. So
Interesting. Memory Troll, do you agree with this? Do you think it could go into Vala or maybe down to decent?
I think Maiar is a good spot for the Two Towers. As we go through this list, I'm going to be personally ranking the Lord of the Rings films higher than the Hobbit films.
Yeah.
But I mean, when it comes to the Two Towers, if you just isolate that one film, I think adaptation wise, even when you take into consideration additions to the story that weren't in the book, I understand those decisions.
Yeah.
With Aragorn's path throughout that film and what's going on in the book there's a lot of differences there. But I mean, I think overall, when you boil it down to the tone and the overall motions in the story and what everything is going towards, everything building up to Helm's Deep and all of the players involved there, and what Frodo and Sam are going through with Gollum, I think adaptation wise, I think it's pretty strong. I wouldn't put it at the top tier. I wouldn't put it in Valar, but I do think that one down is appropriate for the Two Towers. So I would put it at Maiar.
Yeah. And I think an interesting thing about the Two Towers, because, for example, the Battle of Helm's Deep, that was made to see on screen, even though some people laughed at, but saw some maybe interesting action scenes like Legolas riding down the stairs with a shield. I remember that. That was quite interesting to say the least. But overall, I think it was a good adaptation, to the sense that even I think Saul mentioned when he had to bring in some stuff like Aragorn's like relationship with Arwen. I know that was expanded a lot more in this movie, and maybe Tolkien didn't go onto it as much, but I think the movie needed that, and the story and the character of Aragorn needed that in the Two Towers to establish this relationship and bond as well. So I think we can let that aside as well. But overall, Maya, so that's pretty good. But now moving on to, I think this is the Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah, I think that's the Fellowship of the Ring poster. So Chilling Garden, where's your opinions on this?
I think that Fellowship of the Ring was the most truthful one. from all the books or movies. Even though there are chapters that are missing. The Old Forest, then the Tom Bombadil chapter, and Barrow Downs. Yes, but I understand that the movie then would need to be at least 5 hours long to cover all things. But yes, I think that the spirit that the movie has is quite truthful to the books. So yes, I would put it in the Valar ranking.
And I think that's what a lot of people's opinions are on that. But just to play devil's advocate, memory troll, in order for it to be the most adapted or best adapted, if we think about it for Fellowship of the Ring, the first few chapters are basically, I think originally there were like 6 books, mini books. Well, that's how my edition came with, and a lot of the first chapters, for example, maybe Tom Bombadil being moved, and just so many other things as well. At the start, Frediger Bolger, I believe as well, another Hobbit. Just all these things being moved. Do you think that cannot really count in this because of the sheer task it would have been a 5-hour movie, as Chilling Guardian said? So do you think it still can remain in Valar despite that?
Yes, I would still put Fellowship on the top tier. And I totally understand. I mean, there are many differences from the book, and earlier on in the novel, I mean, of course, for any fan, especially if you grew up reading these amazing works, it would have been amazing to see Tom Bombadil, Barrow White, all of the things leading up to Bree, or some of the things leading up to Bree. It would have been great to see those things realized on screen, but I understand from my own experience with video production and filmmaking, and just the concept of adaptation. I mean, it's downright impossible to include everything that's in a source material, especially something as lengthy and a story with such breadth as Lord of the Rings. It's like impossible to do that. And I think just in general, when if you look at any big film that has been derived from a book, I think Fellowship of the Ring is a great example of what a good adaptation is. They included what they needed to still keep the story, the heart of the story intact. All of the key players, the main characters, are there. You see them. You understand their plight, what needs to happen throughout the overall plot, and the main points in the book are still there in the movie. And one addition that I really enjoyed, that was included in the extended edition of Fellowship of the Ring, was the gift giving, Galadriel's gift giving to the Fellowship.
Oh, indeed,
I'm really glad that was something I really enjoyed, that seeing that in the extended cut, and that was just something cool that they took the time to actually film. Unlike, Tom Bombadil, which wasn't filmed at all. But I think this is a really strong adaptation, especially when you look at the other films in this series. Fellowship I think it deserves to be at the top tier.
And I think you have built a really strong case and argument for that, and I believe that most people would agree that Fellowship would be at the top. But now, Memory Troll, moving on to the next one, we have the Battle of the Five Armies. An interesting one. Take this one away, my friend.
Well, I guess we're going from the top to the bottom. Well, oh man, it's really hard to examine that film and say, wow, that's that's like the book. I mean, that's a good adaptation there. It's hard to say that. It's really hard to find anything in that film that really embodied what the book was going for. I don't think I'll ever really fully understand why they devoted an entire film to that one battle. I still think the Hobbit movies would have been much better overall if they had stuck to their original plan, if the production had made two films, because that was the initial idea, was having an unexpected journey being one film, and then I believe the second was going to be called There and Back Again. But they, at some point during, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I'm pretty sure the first film had already released, or it was about to release when they announced that it was going to be a trilogy. It may have been 2012, leading up to that first film coming out, when they said, "Oh no, we're actually making a trilogy." Anyway, I think the biggest problem with the movie Battle of the Five Armies, it's too entirely bloated all over the place. I think it was just they were just trying to make a big, fun, entertaining battle movie that could appeal to a lot of different ages. And then what's so funny is the extended version of that movie, I think, is rated R, because there were a lot of gory additions to that version of the movie, which I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just
I think we can safe to say that we can put it in Alfred, isn't it?
yes, it needs to go in Alfred, I believe. It's just a hard movie to try and explain the creative decisions that were made. And don't get me wrong, anybody listening, I absolutely love Peter Jackson. I love what he's done for the fandom. Lord of the Rings movies are Lord of the Rings. It's a phenomenal. It's my favorite. It probably your guys' favorite film trilogy. But yeah, the Hobbit, it's a conundrum. It's hard to really explain what happened there and the decisions that were made for those films.
I think the best way to describe it is less is more. I've learned that. I think that I've seen that phrase quite a bit this week, and I think that's the best thing with the Battle of the Five Armies as well, trying to add all those different things, these action sequences. And I think if it would be in two movies, as he said, it would have really worked, I believe, better, isn't it? And Chilling Garden, do you have anything to add on, or do you think we can firmly put this one to bed?
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think that it was quite forced, stretched from the first part, Desolation of Smaug. I think that characters were far more shown as immortals and superheroic heroic beings in the second and third part. Yes, yes, I absolutely agree with everything. So, yeah. Alfred also for me.
And I think you can put that one to bed quite easily. But now, I think we are going back up the list again, aren't we, Chilling Garden? We got The Return of the King.
Oh, well, that's actually quite a tough one for me. Well, I have actually no big problems with that movie. Only that it misses the last chapters from the book, such as Scouring the Shire.
Yeah.
But yes, I personally don't have any problems with this movie. But I don't know. I think I would put it in.
Yeah, this is a hard one, isn't it? Because Memory Troll, even though it is great. Remember, you have that thing of was like the Army of the Dead that came back at the end, which helped save Gondor, instead of the Southern Gondor forces. That was a change, and also just in general, yeah, I think the same argument for the start of the Fellowship of the Ring, just to play devil's advocate. They missed out Tom Bombadil, the Dead Marshes, but now here, during the Return of the King, the Scouring of the Shire. Do you think that could put that down, or do you think it'd still stay in Valar?
Probably, I probably would put Return of the King, the movie, in the Maiar category.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put it anywhere lower than that, because I still think that the Rings trilogy, the movies, they still, yes, there were deviations, there were additions, there were omissions, but overall, I try to look at this in an overarching sense that the story wasn't radically changed from book to movie.
No way.
And so, yeah, I mean, just because of some of the more, when you look at the book, the Scouring of the Shire it's a very important part of the story for the hobbits. Coming back home, I know a lot of people are confused by that chapter and why it's even there in the book. Kind of, I guess, being anticlimactic in a sense after the ring being destroyed. But for the hobbits, it's a very important part of the book because it shows how they've grown in all of their peril and the quests that they went on, and how they take those things that they learned from their journey, they take those things back home and they save their home because of it. And that's a huge part of the book. But in the film world, I understand that omission because they were building up to the major climax of that ring being destroyed, and they just they went into that gigantic denouement segment of the movie with all of the endings. But the Scouring being omitted, it's sad, but I understand it. But I don't know, on our tier list here, I don't know if you could put the Return of the King movie at the top of this list. So I would put it just one down at Maiar.
And I think Chilling Garden, do you agree with that, right?
Yes, I agree with Maiar. Yes.
And I think that makes logical sense. But now moving on to the final one, and Memory Troll, we have, I think, an interesting one, in fact, the Desolation of Smaug, however you say it. Take this one away, my friend.
Man, I would love to know, just in the general fandom of all Tolkien lovers, which one is more disliked, because I've heard so many different things when it comes to the Hobbit movies. People can't decide if they dislike Battle more or Desolation more. For me personally, I would put this one in the meh category. I would rank it higher than Battle. I know there are many wheels off things that they did with this movie, but I can still find some enjoyment with it. But yeah, I mean, overall, this movie does need to go towards the bottom of our tier list. I think meh is it's a good place for it.
Yeah.
It could go at the very bottom, but I see that we're trying to spread it out as much as we can over this tier list. So I think the second from the bottom is a good place for this movie. Just some general comments about the movie. It was a fun, entertaining watch. I can still watch this movie and have fun, but I do have to, I have to kind of step back and look at this kind of as a movie of its own, and not look at it as an adaptation of The Hobbit, because there are just so many differences, and it's hard to say that, wow, this is a good adaptation, because it's a pretty poor adaptation.
I think there are
I
certain segments that maybe the movie did okay, like for example, when they went into Mirkwood and the sequence with the spiders, the star with Beyond's house, and I think a general theme that you can see at the start of the movie. But then maybe
yeah.
when it went to and Gandalf continually going to Dol Guldur, maybe that started to get a bit. It's maybe I think this movie would have again maybe been better if it would have ended at ended at the end of the story. I don't know what else I'm trying to say. I don't think maybe some of the stuff added. I think we haven't mentioned yet with the Hobbit Chilling Garden is the love triangle between Legolas, Tariel, and Philly, I believe it was. So yeah, do you think that could play a role into why it's so low?
I can understand that Jackson wanted some romance in the movie, but I mean the love triangle wasn't. I think wasn't best choice. I mean, just by the fact that there is no evidence that about the relationship between dwarves and elves. If there was such romances, I mean,
It just felt a bit
I don't
out
know.
of there. It didn't really feel like
Yes,
it was
yes,
too distracting, I think, which is a good way to put it. But
yes,
overall,
yes.
I think, do we agree with this list? Any more changes from any of you two? Or are we good to set it off?
Yes,
I think
this is
that's pretty solid.
You know,
One quick thing I wanted to say about the Hobbit, I loved the character of Beorn being brought to life, and Fellowship, you mentioned this earlier with Beorn's role in the battle, how brief it was in the movie, and his part when they're at Beorn's house in the second movie. I wish that had been fleshed out a little more. I just overall, I wish there had been more of
maybe as
Beorn.
character, in general, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I thought the actor that they cast as that role, that overall portrayal of that character, I really liked it on film. And it was just there wasn't enough of that character. I could have used more of that, but
Yeah, I think
just a quick note.
Yeah, I think we did mention that beforehand, and that is really a valid point. Maybe that is why those two movies are in the bottom three categories. And I just think overall, yeah, I think if you let me know in the comments below whether you agree, disagree, where would you place more? Maybe do you not agree that the Fellowship of the Ring can be in Valar because of things omitted? Maybe another one could be up there. Who knows? Also, we just want to reiterate this was on the best adapted from the source material. So yeah, we'll do another one in the future on how we enjoyed the movies and how successful they were as movies overall. But it's time to wrap up. Thank you, Memory Troll, for coming on again. I really appreciate it. Can't wait for next week.
Thank you so much. This is a lot of fun. Look forward to future discussions.
Indeed. And also, thank you to Chilling Garden, my friend.
Yes, thank you also, and see you next time.
Indeed. And thank you to all the viewers watching at home. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. But until the next video, my friends, goodbye.